Hi everyone, welcome to the FF Salon at Money 2020. My name is Emily Redding.
I'm Russ Cohn.
And I'm Bina Mirchandani.
So you may realise we've got slightly busier salon in today. It's because we have some surrogate hair cutting and styling going on at the moment. Russ, as wonderful as you are, I think we've all realised that potentially a little bit of zhuzhing for your hair will be a little bit easier for the fabulous Jose to crack on with. So what are we doing today, Jose?
We're just going to smooth and create some soft waves.
Soft waves. I feel like that's quite a popular one that's happening at the moment. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Okay, Russ, let's get into it. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do? What's your career? What are you up to at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm running OCR Labs in Europe, in EMEA. Mm-hmm. We have just rebranded to IDVerse.
Hello!
So that's what we're doing. Hello IDVerse, hello
Hence
world.
the t-shirts.
Hence the t-shirt. So it's a reflection of our broader offering and what we do. We do ID verifications, identity verification and fraud detection. And we do that
the name
for
makes
banks.
Sense.
Yeah. And we do that for banks and fintechs and governments and employment agencies and lots of different businesses across the world. So my career has brought me to this place in the last couple of years.
Fantastic. And how did you start out? Why did you get into this in this industry or this particular line of work? What led you here?
So I spent many years, a couple of decades in advertising, and so I was working in online marketing, online advertising. I'm a marketer, a commercial leader across other businesses. And I went to venture capital a couple of years ago, and OCR Labs was one of our investments. And during COVID, I started to do some work with the company who was Australia-based, wanting to internationalize their business. And we all know what happened during COVID. And
yes.
So I ended up building a team remotely and not meeting a lot of them, and then hiring. And with COVID, we've seen a lot of remote everything, right? So people's jobs, where they work, the way they bank, the way they shop.
Yeah.
And so the need for IDVerse, OCR Labs solution to be able to verify your customers has grown and grown and grown. So the team has grown by proxy, and now more than half the company is international. So from just me a couple of years back, we have a very big team both in Europe, Turkey, and in the US outside of Australia. So we're very excited about our growth.
That's incredible. And how have you found that growth? So having to do that in COVID, in the middle of a pandemic, must have been a real challenge. But how have you found it looking back on that time?
Look, I think we all had a tough time, right? I mean, I was talking last night at dinner to people, and this reality that we live in, we all seem to have just forgotten about it. It shows our resilience, which is amazing, right? So as people, as society, we're resilient. I think what happened during that period, from the reflection of OCR Labs, IDVerse, was we were trying to talk to people about ID verification and what they needed. It was very challenging because you couldn't go to events. No. You couldn't meet people in person. We were used to this my whole career.
It's actually kind of amazing that we're even doing this now, that we're all just sat here.
The size of Money 2020. We came in 2021 when we were allowed a special dispensation by the Dutch government to travel here. It was a much pared down event. It was only in that middle hall. There was nothing else. A few thousand people came, mostly Dutch people from the region.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, we're back to full steam. I think we're all loving being in person, speaking to people again, and being able to have these real life conversations. So, Zoom is great, Teams is great, all that stuff to enable you to do remote everything. But I think people still like people at the end of the day, and so it's great to be back.
Brilliant. What's your biggest challenge that you're facing at the moment, or that you think you're going to face over the next few years?
I think, look, we're in a recession now. It's hard to tell sometimes, right? Because we're all trying to spend, but we're in a recession, and times are tough for us as consumers. The UK inflation is very high still. This is an economic chat, but I think as businesses, we all have to be prudent. And what's good about us is that we haven't over-invested like a lot of our peers in people and resources, so we haven't had to scale back and let a lot of people go. So we've been fairly conservative, and we let the technology do the scaling.
That's great.
But I think the challenge for us is finding the right people to fit in, to join the rocket ship, and to get on board. We don't want to make the same mistakes as the past, but we want to help as many people as possible. So how do you scale without bringing on all that process and the issues that go with scaling a business. So
Sure.
I think we need to be wary of that, and
Yep.
we need to be wary about our cost base, of course, but we need to at the same time make sure our technology serves everyone when it can.
Absolutely, and I think going from a startup to something that is super scalable and is
Yeah.
expanding and growing, you have to
Exactly.
be really, really careful to keep that culture that started first and foremost about the people that you
Yeah.
hired.
Yeah.
Have you found that exciting? You found it interesting? You're obviously incredibly entrepreneurial. What was it like making that decision to kind of start just you and kind of go it alone? What did you find?
I mean, the founders are still in Sydney, so I was connected through the investment, and they asked for some help, and I was glad to help. It was scary for me at first because it's a new sector. I knew nothing
Yeah.
about fraud or identity two and a half years ago. It's amazing what you can learn. Somebody
Yes.
with, absolutely no knowledge, and you can run an international fraud protection business. But I have an amazing team behind me, and the founders are incredible. The technology is incredible. We've got some massive brain power in building our solutions. So scaling is difficult. I've done it in a number of businesses previously. I was lucky enough to be at Google in the early 2000s, and
Fantastic.
went from 100 people in Europe to 68,000 people globally. So you've got to be considerate and have processes in place to be able to scale. So it's scary. But as long as you bring the right people on board and you trust each other and you build an environment of inclusivity and to make sure everybody's on board and you communicate well, I think anything's possible, and particularly with great tech, it really helps.
I agree. Well, leading on from that then, so I mean, it's an incredible story, the fact that you knew very little about what you do now, specifically in this industry 2.5 years ago. That's amazing. What's your proudest moment, whether that's personally or professionally? What's the one thing that you sometimes look back on and think, that was a really defining moment or point in my life for me?
I'm an immigrant from South Africa, so obviously not naturally British. So I moved about 24 years ago from South Africa. So I wasn't necessarily scared, but it's when you go to a new country and you don't know anyone and you're starting a new life and you've left everything you know behind you.
Yes.
I think to be able to reestablish yourself. I got into search engine marketing back then in the 2000s. Not many people knew much, right? So I was lucky. It was a bit of a time when
Right
we were
time,
all
right
digging for
place.
gold, right?
Yeah.
Right time, right place, and I was lucky enough to get into search. And so I think joining Google at the time, I was proud to have gotten the role. It was my third role in search, but Google wasn't Google. They had 8% market share when I joined
They were
them.
new kids on the
So they were
block
just this
then.
cool tech company.
Yes.
But looking back, I guess I'm very proud of being able to reestablish myself, and I like to make new markets and do new things, and so
Do you think
that's what I do, and that's the
drives you?
entrepreneurial
Yeah,
drive for me. I
it's
think I
that
always want
interest.
to break through walls and try new things, and I love tech. Tech's in my blood. I'm not a technologist, but I love and I understand technology.
It's a
and
personal interest for you.
it is, and I'm passionate about tech ever since I played on Sega and back in the day, and Atari back in the 70s. I'm aging myself, but the 70s and 80s, and I've always loved tech. And tech, I can see now how tech has impact for good and can and change people's lives. And
Yes.
it's everywhere, and AI is the next iteration of what we're seeing.
There's no
And
getting away from it.
I'm as excited now about what we're doing in identity that I was what we were doing in search back in the early 2000s, and how it's changing everything.
Yes.
And so for me, I think it's a very exciting time. So my proudest moment is probably picking up and starting a new life and re-establishing it. And then of course having my family and my daughters, and that's always
Yes.
a
Oh,
proud
that
moment.
goes without
Oh,
saying.
yeah,
That
goes without saying.
Oh, of course, they're up
Yeah.
there at the top. They're up at the top. Jose, how are we getting on? This looks amazing.
Fine in.
Beautiful.
Looking good.
Yeah,
Areas.
it looks really, really great.
Lots of
Are you
envy.
jealous?
Envy. Envy. Could have
Okay,
been me.
one last
Thank
question
you.
Yes.
then. One last question. Someone similar to you, just starting out in their career, obsessed with tech, very entrepreneurial. Key bit of advice you'd give them? Or not to do?
Be resilient. Right? So a
We're
lot of
hearing
people
that a lot.
A
Yeah.
lot of people will crap on you on the way. A lot of people will reject you and your ideas. You've just got to develop a thicker skin. You've just got to keep going and believe in yourself. And I think the times and the moments when I doubted myself, or I wasn't able to do it, or I failed, or I didn't get to a process, you've just got to be resilient. Get up the next day,
Keep
you know,
going.
dust yourself off, and put the makeup on, put the slap on, do the hair, and get out there again and just try again, because you don't know what your future's like, and it's up to you to build it. So I'd say resilience is the key thing for anybody young. Don't be offended by rejection.
Yes.
Rejection is a builder for the next thing and the positive thing that you'll do in your life.
And if you are, it just wasn't the right thing for you.
Sometimes it's just not the right thing, and only with hindsight can you tell that. So that's why it's a perfect science. But but yeah, I'd say resilience is the thing that I would want my kids and anybody younger or anybody starting this industry, anybody who's building a career is to have, because you will have rejections and failures in your life. It's inevitable.
Great piece of advice. What a lovely note to close on. Should we do the chair swivel? Big reveal?
Let's do
Ah.
it. I'm gonna go this way.
Brought the color out.
Da, 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 da. Oh yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
just
amazing.
so-
Very glad.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
This is the best interview ever.
Oh, good. Brilliant. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Happy?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Emily.
you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
so much for
Thanks
coming
for
in.
your
That was
time.
fantastic. That was
Thank
really
you.
good.